We've read the new High Republic book, Light of the Jedi, and hopefully you have too, because we're about to break it down and review it in detail. That and more on this episode of the Escape Podcast for Star Wars The Old Republic. Our broadcast astromech today is EPC 372. And reading alongside me is Seema. Hi, Seema. How's it going?
Hi, Max. Going pretty well. Gosh, that book has a lot of characters, but we're going to go into that. But first, SWTOR stuff. I spent some time this week again piling up some credits in a low-effort way, just basically selling the stuff that I get from Conquest. I still have a good supply of Legendary Embers and the Solid Matrix Resource whatever that thing is. I've sold all my encryptions though, and I'm up to about almost to 1.5 billion.
Nice.
So just from that effort, I've gone from just over $1 billion to almost halfway to 2 billion.
That's a nice margin.
Every time I make a few million credits, I can't stop this. But what goes in my mind is oh, another character gets a level 50 companion. It's not even true, because it takes more than 4 million credits, because you have to go buy the
Dark Projects. Yeah.
I was thinking of the things you buy on Odessa to make the Dark Projects, but yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. MFN this week we went and did something that we haven't really done that much in MFN, which is we went and did Dread Palace. We had a number of people there who'd never done it before, and it was really fun because Dread Palace, the difference in the level of mechanics between Dread Fortress and Dread Palace is kind of big, even in story mode. So because it was story mode, we were able to be successful in most of the fights. We got Raptus down, but we didn't get a chance. We ran out of time before we could try the council. But it was really fun to see the Calpheus fight with people who had never seen it before, and just the Tyrannus fight with the sections of the floor falling down. It was fun. In our ops team that we just got done with tonight, we decided to go into Scum and Villainy on veteran mode, which we hadn't done, and we had a lot of good luck there too. We did not get Styrek down because we ran out of time, but we would have. So nothing was giving us too much problem. Being in Scum and Villainy reminded me of the Nihil, though, which is what we're going to talk about when we get to the book. So it was the Nihil are like a wretched hive of scum and villainy themselves.
Yeah, even wretcheder and hivier than we've ever seen before.
Yeah. And then I also did the new little story beat-ette that came with this patch, the little scene where they send you off to go find Zenith.
Yep. And
I was really kind of disturbed by the version of it that I got on my mercenary, who is Imperial Alliance. So basically what they wanted her to do, which she refused to do, was she wanted her to go fool Zenith into thinking that he was actually gonna, because he's a Republic rebel, right? Fool him into thinking that by doing a certain thing he's actually attacking the imps, even though he'd be helping them. And then after he's done doing this thing he fooled him into, have him arrested.
Man.
So I'm like, that's
a jerk move.
That's hardcore, man. I'm like, no, that's not me.
Yeah.
So I said, no, we'll wait for another opportunity. I said, there's an option where you just let the Imperials handle it. And I'm like, yeah, I don't need to go betray Zenith in that way.
Right. It's beneath
me. I don't know about that, but yeah, I didn't want to. So yeah, how about you, Max? How's your week been?
Pretty good. I'm slowing down, kind of wrapping up. I sold everything that I felt like selling for now. I might do a little bit more on the making of credits, but I think I'm mostly wrapped up with that for now. I've been doing, I'll probably wait a little bit until the legendary embers start to pile up again, and then go through another pass of selling. But I too have quite a bit of a nice margin now over my previous limit, and it feels good. Could buy
Yeah.
some things if I wanted to, or not have to worry about it if something comes up, which is sort of the point.
I kind of want to sell that stuff now while people are still buying it.
It is a really
And
good, and I'm not done selling all of my encryptions, so I may come back and start doing that a little bit as well along the way.
like I might have made more money if I would have like waited and sold them at certain times of the week and all that stuff, but I'm just happy that I actually did sell them instead of a year from now when they're worthless or whenever. I'm
Yeah,
like, "Oh, what am I gonna do with these now?"
yeah, that's a really good idea. Vet modes are fun and exciting. We've been doing modes on our regular Thursday ops night. I'm having fun with that. Us going in and just without having done it for like 6 months at least, going in and doing scum and villainy vet mode and getting almost through the whole thing, not having even remembering the fights is great and good and fun, and more of a reason for us to continue knocking out the vet modes and then see what we want to do after that. So that has been fun as well. And I've been doing just a little, 100 or 200 hours in Valheim.
Yes, there's a lot of traffic in the Valheim channel
Uh,
on Discord.
our
It's pretty
guild, our guild has a server. I built a giant house. It's got 8 private rooms, and if you know anything about Valheim, it's quite a. We've got a harbor where our boats sail up. You can only put 10 people on a server. This is the big downside, so I don't think it's going to be a long-term thing. But the guild's playing it quite a bit right now. A subset of the guild that's into these kind of like survival building games. Anyway, that's what I've been doing. Let's move it along because we've got a book to talk about. Let's dip into the news.
Now, an Imperial News Network report.
So, quick update on the forum watch. We do have quite a bit coming up in the forums and the dev tracker on known issues. It kicked off on the 1st, so we've got like a whole page of dev tracker posts. But community team, which is Natha, I believe, did a relatively long post about here's forum rules and etiquette. Be nice to each other. So they're really trying to continue to push that idea of culture, which I think is good. And then there was just a bunch of sort of the bug tracking. Nothing too exciting or interesting there. We won't go through in detail all of the stuff. The one thing that did come up, because it's something that we're all sort of chasing down, is if the Spoils of War sets are not registered for you in the achievements, that's still not fixed broadly, except if you take those pieces and mail them to another character, that does work to set it in your achievements. So that will register it as an achievement, which is good. The bigger thing, the big thing that's having an impact on some people that was broken and causing a ruckus, could you describe the ruckus, is tacticals that stack up and create stacks on you of some kind of buff or something are broken.
Mm-hmm.
So that for people that were relying on those for their rotation and doing damage, that's a little bit of a problem until they get that fixed. I imagine that's something they will highly prioritize and hopefully fix quickly.
Yeah, whenever your rotation gets changed on you like that, it does cause a little bit of a hitch to how you do things.
I did not mean to give you the PvP talk, but feel free.
It's okay. It's short.
Yeah, it's not too big.
And I have a question anyway. PvP season 13 has ended. So when the patch came down on the 2nd, on Tuesday, that was the end of PvP season 13, and we've now entered PvP preseason 14. And then new rewards can be found at Gerada the Hut on the Fleet. And does that mean you can go there and look at what the rewards are going to be for season 14, or does that mean that you can go there and get your season 13?
I think
rewards?
Just your season 13 and not the replica sets. Those don't come until season 14. But it is not the preview of what's going to come at the end of season 14. They'll wait to show those off and announce those way too late into season 14 to really make a difference, because that's what they do. No, they've been doing it sooner and sooner, but no, it's not season 14 stuff.
Gotcha.
There is a big, long post, which we're not going to get into. We may spend some significant time next week going into 6.2.1 in more detail, and a relatively sizable post about 6.2.1 known issues. You may want to peruse that if you want to check into not everything is working
Hey,
as
maybe
intended.
next week we'll be talking about all the ones that got fixed.
Yes, 6.2.1.1 or whatever the case may be, or 6.2.1b. Yeah.
So also there was a discussion on the forums this week because BioWare is in some Discords, and you may know Discords are basically BioWare doesn't have a Discord that they run for players that's an official Discord. So these would be player-run Discords, and there are BioWare employees that are in those Discords. And so there was a big discussion about, is that good? Is that bad? I think it's fine. But there's the people that don't like it feel like there's a limited number of players then that are maybe getting special access to devs or getting advanced information, all that stuff. I would, if you feel that way, I would just urge you not to, because that's probably not happening. They're probably not sharing stuff in that Discord that they don't also share in the forums. And if you want official information and announcements from devs, you can get them from the forums. Chris Schmidt, who's one of the devs that does frequent a Discord, made a post about what he does in Discords. He says he likes it for general human chatting, discussing, things like hobbies. He sometimes will gather additional info on reported bugs or exploits. He also uses it for guiding folks to the official channels when they ask how to report something or where they should go for certain information, and for discussing game design as a general topic, not necessarily changes coming to SWTOR or design considerations for SWTOR, but just game design in general. He says that's what he's doing in Discord. And I think that's probably what most devs will be doing in Discord if that's what there are. So it's a long thread. You can go and read it if you like.
I think it's fine. He made it clear that he's doing it in his spare time. It's not an official channel.
Right. It's his thing that he does as a person. He's a person and he does that.
I in my professional life still also talk on in other places about the things I do for work. And he did make it clear, and this is kind of what you need to do in that sort of professional environment. The views I express here are my own and not the official views of BioWare. And I have to make that kind of statement if I do any sort of significant tech talk outside of my professional role. That said, I get the angst around.
I do too. Yeah.
There because you can have best intentions of I will always make sure it shows up in the official channels as well, but it doesn't always show up in the official channels, does it? Almost always. And they're getting, they're quite good about it, but some people will feel like they're missing out for one, but maybe they can go and join the Discord. But I can't scan a Discord 24/7 to get official news as somebody who should know the news. And then if it doesn't get copied over or something sort of goes out in those places and somebody then comes to us and goes, you guys didn't even know blah, blah, blah. Well, no, I guess we didn't because we weren't on the Discord. And then we're going to, then I'm going to get angsty and go, well, I guess I should get on the Discord.
Well, I mean, but I don't know. It wouldn't bother me because I could get on that Discord. Anyone could. But I'm on enough Discords and
I've got like 45.
Yeah. And a lot of them are SWTOR Discords. So it's sort of like
And I'm not going to read them.
I'm not going to monitor them 24/7, right? Yeah.
All right, Guild and community news. We've got a couple things coming up. I'll kick it off and you can correct me where I'm wrong, because I think one of the things we got wrong last week. So Mega is coming up on the 12th. That is a week from tomorrow. That will be, it sounds like it'll be PvP related. We'll have to see how that goes. Then we have our rotating achievement and flashpoint groups that are on Fridays also. We have our Tuesday mandatory fun nights. I figured I would start dropping it in the middle of the show here too, so people don't get all the way to the end, because who could stay awake that long? AI-guild.org come join our guild, aie-guild.org, the Discord link for our Discord, which you should certainly join because Discords are great. What were we just saying? I don't remember. Join every Discord.
Right,
Link
right.
in the upper right of aie-guild.org.
And monitor it 24/7.
There is a SWTOR Escape podcast channel. That's your official source of news about the SWTOR Escape podcast.
It's really easy to monitor that channel.
Yeah, we basically, you get 2 posts. The show is going live, and we published the completed show. 2 posts a week. Well, but this next thing we got wrong last week, didn't we, Seema?
Yes, we did.
You want to mention
Go ahead.
it? Okay. Well, we mentioned it last week. 100th episode of Working Class Nerds is coming
Yay.
up. Congratulations to those guys, Nick and Marcus. That is awesome. But when is it the 19th then that we're supposed to be
No,
on?
it's the 25th. It's the 25th.
Oh, Thursday the 25th.
Yeah.
Okay. So Thursday the 25th, Seema and I will be on the 100th episode of Working Class Nerds.
Yeah. Apparently
Live.
last week we just picked a random March date and said it with conviction, but it was wrong.
The 114th of February.
The 14th.
So yeah, shout out to the chat room. Thank you everybody for coming in and joining in. We'll talk a little bit about the book in just a second. We'll be clear about spoilers, but we are going to get into spoilers this week. I know people are asking about it before the show. After the show, we'll talk a little bit more about any of our censored commentary and anything else we've got going on that we're not going to try to pack into our first third of the show. But with that, let's talk about some actual stuff.
Deep in the ancient, monster-infested tomb of Marka Ragnos, there is a holocron filled with dark secrets and encased in a great stone monument.
I tried to find a drop-in that would work, and if I worked very hard, I probably could have, for High Republic. But High Republic is not audio. High Republic is not video. High Republic is a publishing function. So we talked about it a little bit about 3 weeks ago, the genesis of High Republic, Project Luminous, how they brought these writers together, and the various tracks of written and drawn content that's part of this High Republic so far. It may go further in other directions. I kind of expect it to if it's successful and people sort of really like it. But there's a few different book series at different sort of reading levels, sort of like a young adult and an even younger adult, and then like an adult books, and then comic books. There's more of that. That's sort of part of this. In that, I didn't have a drop-in, so that's what I did there. But Light of the Jedi, that's what we kicked off. That was what we're going to talk about this week. And we're going to get into it in detail. So last time we talked about the author, we talked about the setup, we talked about where it was coming from and what the purpose of this all was. Now we're going to talk about what the plot was, what the characters were, what our opinion was, what problems we saw in it, and how much we liked it or not. So let's jump right in, and not to bury the lead, why don't we start it, Seema, with just what did you think in general? Sort of a top line summary. And would you recommend anyone else read it? Let's start there, and then we'll break into the detail.
Okay, so I thought it was very interesting to see a view of the galaxy where there are a lot of Jedi, and where the Jedi are basically a force for good, which is my concept, which I learned from A New Hope of the history of the Jedi. And it's a good book to read and spend time with if you like hanging out in the Star Wars galaxy. There's a lot of Star Warsy stuff. It's a lot of characters, so they're introducing a lot of characters, and they don't introduce them all, because like we were saying a couple weeks ago, there's like a series, an adult series, there's a young adult series, and then there's a middle school series. And each of those, they might overlap somewhat, but they have their own threads of characters.
Mhm.
So like if you were to go Google the High Republic characters, you'll see there's a bunch of new characters. It's a whole new world. It's kind of fun to see people um, with lightsabers doing Force stuff that are not the Skywalkers.
Yes. It is a whole new world. Don't you dare close your eyes. A whole new world. Uh, I think I would agree. I think visually it paints a good picture. Even the book. I'm talking about the book in particular, Light of the Jedi. It paints an interesting vision of this era of the High Republic. It shows you interesting things to sort of poke at and see and look and reveal. I think overall as a story, it was lacking in a couple ways, but it was fine. So my overall take on the book is, if you're a Star Wars fan, you're gonna read it. You should read it. This is a whole new sort of era in the Star Wars universe. You want the setup. Overall, I think you'll find you either love it or it's fine. I think very few people are going to hate it. I just think story wise, which we'll talk about a little bit, it's got some weak points. Uh, the
When
fun,
the
I agree with you though, the fun of seeing this era, seeing the differences, learning new things that, that we saw either in that we know of in the old Republic, or that we see in the future Republic and all the movie series. That is really interesting to see.
when the concept of the High Republic first started making the rounds and everyone was talking about it, you get that feeling like if there's only Jedi and there aren't any Sith to be like the other side, it won't be interesting because it's just everybody's good, nobody's bad. And this book does kind of fall into that. That doesn't have to be true. You can absolutely have interesting characters that have interesting um, life, and they want different things out of life, and they work different ways to get there. You don't have to have Sith for there to be drama, but this book kind of is lacking in drama because there isn't a real strong counter to what's going on until like maybe the very end.
Kind of not strong enough to stand up to the light of the Jedi, and we are all
But
the
if you
Republic.
if you are looking for, I mean, but basically it's the setting. If you're okay reading a book that's the beginning and it's going to set you up for some other books, it's going to introduce a bunch of characters and you get to know there's so many of them though that you don't get to know them much at all. Um,
It's gonna show. It's almost like a slideshow of somebody's vacation. You're gonna see a whole bunch of stuff, and maybe then the narrative doesn't all sort of fit together, but you're gonna see a whole bunch of cool stuff. So that's cool. All right, so this is the point in the podcast where we will say spoilers alert, spoilers from here on out. Red alert. All hands on deck. Spoiler chat is a comin'. You ready, Seema?
Ready.
All right. Let's start with the characters, because you mentioned characters and getting into it. I agree. There was a ton of characters, and a lot of them are they paint an interesting portrait. I think, unfortunately, just because of the way the book is structured and the way it's sort of like the kickoff, there's no depth to any of the characters that I sort of felt. You'll sort of get a sense that that my biggest problem with all of this is sort of the depth is lacking. So there's not really arcs or characters, but they painted an interesting portrait. They showed you some interesting people who maybe will turn out to be, or some interesting seeming people who maybe will turn out to be interesting, but aren't necessarily just yet for me, but maybe are to you. Avar,
So-
we want you to introduce a couple of them, and we can talk about just some of the characters we know of so far.
So yeah, we do meet a bunch of Jedi, and possibly the most famous one is Avar Kriss, who's like every Jedi sort of has their specialty in this the way this book is set up, which I think is kind of a cool thing. But her specialty is sort of communicating amongst all the Jedi. So she has this ability to use the Force to sort of connect all the Jedi, which is a kind of an interesting idea. For me, one of the standout Jedi characters is Loden Greatstorm. Of all of them, him and one other Jedi, I think, actually managed to get some personality, which I enjoyed.
Yeah. They kind of, again, they just lack the time. They lack the arcs to get much, for us to sort of get to know them too much. But I agree. Loden Greatstorm also has a really good name. A lot of the other names, I know. Stellan Gaios, Porter Engel, Elzar Mann, Avar Chris. Those are okay. Loden Greatstorm. That is a good name. And we'll talk about this couple of the Nihil names that are good. Buryaga Agaburi.
Yeah.
He's the Wookiee Padawan. There's a Wookiee Padawan. Everybody's sort of all yipped up about that. It barely gets no depth, barely gets a chance to do anything. So there's this chart I have up came off of an interesting website, and it's just and this isn't all just in Light of the Jedi. So this is only the Jedis of Light of the Jedi in that upper box in the top there, which is like the 9 plus the other 7 that they talk about, and then a couple other ones are referenced who come from the other stories. They just throw a bunch of these Jedi at you, and they're all just doing stuff. So it's just fine. The Padawans are doing Padawan things, and they're Bell Zettifar just was not very interesting to me.
Not for long, though. By the end of the book, all the Padawans have been promoted.
Oh, I guess so. But I don't think they should have been. I mean, how could Bell Zettifar have been promoted?
He did one thing.
He squeezed his eyes shut real tight and wished real hard and did a thing.
Well, his wishing was really good. He was good at that.
I guess. There's hard magic systems, there's sci-fi, and there's fantasy. There's soft magic and there's hard magic. Star Wars is fantasy, not sci-fi. And it's very not sci-fi because I got a whole bunch of sci-fi problems with this book too. But that's okay. I'm willing to set that aside because it's fantasy. Hard magic system says, here are the rules. There's this, you've got a mana pool, and if you deplete your mana pool, you can't cast the spell. And here's the spells, and here's the classes. And soft magic system, stuff can just kind of just happen. There's sort of general guiding principles, and stuff can kind of just happen. So the Force is a soft magic system, and boy, does stuff just kind of happen. Just across this whole book. In some ways, in some really exciting, cool things to watch and see and hear about. But I think it goes a little bit overboard with just stuff just sort of happening.
And I do think they did. There were some pretty cool things with Loden Greatstorm where he talks about his physical, fighting training that are pretty cool, because there is that aspect of it too to being a Jedi, is you have to be sort of martially good as well. I mean, if you're going to fight, not all the Jedi fight, obviously.
They say a couple times throughout the book. Well, there's two catchphrases. Anything is possible through the Force, and they mean anything. You want to spontaneously manifest a pomegranate in the middle of the kitchen table? Yeah, anything's possible. Do you want to fly? Do you want to fall off a cliff and from an infinite height from outer space and land safely on a planet through the Force? Yeah, sure, you can do that. I felt that was a weakness in the plot. So when we get to the plot, a lot of the plot points are barely interesting, and then they get resolved by magic. The Force, cool Force abilities, but there's, I don't know what you could not do with the Force now. They've sort of set it up that nothing you could imagine cannot be done with the Force. Just
so now I think one of the things they're going to have to do, or maybe this is where they're heading in some ways, is that you'll have to be disconnected from the Force to get into any trouble.
Maybe. Well, yes, sure. And that's a setup to what happens to Loden Greatstorm by the end.
Right. Right.
And then there's, I think, in one of the other bits of media, either in the comic book, I think the High Republic comic book, which is this group down here at the bottom. I think this guy, I think one of these guys gets severed from the Force. I've only heard about, so I'm gonna have to get into that too. And can that even be healed? We don't know.
And there were a handful of Jedi in this book who died from using the Force too hard.
I guess Luke kind of did that, didn't he?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
and do you remember anything about any of the Jedi that died from losing the Force too hard? I don't. I wasn't sad either.
They weren't actual characters, so yeah, no, they didn't. Yeah. They were just dots on the page. But and then there were several things where they saw something happening, but they couldn't gather the Force fast enough, and then they died.
Right.
I mean, there are limitations.
Use the Force, Luke. Oh, too late. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a little bit of that. Couple other characters that are non-Jedi. I get it's the light of the Jedi, so it's all about the Jedi. There's the Chancellor and the Pussycats. And I forgot her name, but I'm sure we could look it up here somewhere.
Lena something like that.
She was kind of cool. Mostly because she had these interesting giant tigers that followed her around.
She was very direct, and she had this one politician arguing with her all the time that was sort of like symbolic of,
right,
probably all the politicians that were arguing with her.
So a little bit of the politics, which I think, again, that could have been some complexity, and there could have been more, but it was pretty vanilla. It was, no, don't shut down the hyperlanes. We got to shut down the hyperlanes. Don't want you to shut down. Don't. That's bad. Okay, we'll shut down the hyperlanes. We can open the hyperlanes now, or we can open the hyperlanes. That was that plot line. That was the politics. But she said some cool things. She was kind of interesting. I think the Joss and Pika Adren, who flew the sort of like the smuggler shipping ship, I liked that little duo. They seemed kind of fun, non-Jedi sort of side characters. They didn't do a lot, but they helped out a little bit.
Yeah.
And they seem to have a little bit of character. I think, then that leads to the big set of characters, which I think were the most visually interesting, the Nihil. So what's your deal with the Nihil, Seema? What do you think of the Nihil?
So I actually thought the Nihil were a really interesting construct. They're a wretched hive of scum and villainy. They're a group of villains or criminals, but they're structured in a very particular way that works for them. They have basically 3 main leaders and this fellow who's called the Eye. And they have very few rules. The only rule is that you have to be successful. So like if you go out to steal something, you come back and they all get a cut based on their contribution. And that is basically all.
Yep. And if you fail, you pay the price. You pay the iron price.
Right.
They remind me.
And I was just going to say the 3 leaders and the Eye basically are pretty interesting characters.
Yeah. They have some
Kassav,
character.
Lorna D, Pan Eta, and then the Eye. Yeah. Whose name is Marchion Ro, which you'll hear more about.
Right.
When we get to that. But
and if we had to pick anyone to be sort of the main character of the book, it's really Marchion Ro. But the Nihil in general, they remind me of, if you saw the movie Mad Max, they're like, They're like, everybody in Mad Max, just flying around these big, the masks and the tech, the cyberpunky kind of stuff, and flying their
Yeah.
ships around and smoking the death sticks while they're charging into battle and whoop woo doing the drugs because the bad guys are the drug guys. You could see this concept art with like the face paint, and they all wear wear masks all the time, and I also, as you mentioned, I like the hierarchical structure and the way it's described. So each division, there's 3 major divisions, sort of like military divisions. They're called the Tempests, and each head of each Tempest is the Storm, and then the lieutenants under the Storm are the Clouds. And that was just, there's like a cool structure and a cool culture, a bit bad, but cool, with some character. The Jedi are pretty vanilla in comparison. They're just Jedi, and they are good and do good, and that's good. And you need that kind of thing in Star Wars. My problem with the Nihil right now are they're small and they're not that bad. I don't think. And we'll get to Martian Rowe, who I think also is kind of small and not bad enough for all of this power and everything that the Jedi are and represent. You've basically start the book with 3,000 Nihil, and you end the book with about 2,500 Nihil. And they were, they at least had one battle where they were decimated. Yes, only 10% of the entire Nihil were destroyed. And that was just with one assault squad that came out and wiped out, like a quarter of the Nihil in a battle. Okay. And that battle itself, interesting plot point. When we get to the plot points, interesting stuff happened. They fought really dirty. Can you believe it? Well, yeah, okay. That was, it was mildly interesting. I still am not set up with them as being the kind of dichotomy of good versus evil, where we had the Galactic Empire versus just a couple, a small rebellion. And, that was an epic battle. This is like a small group of bad guys and billions of people that are joining the Republic, and all of these super powerful Jedi.
Yeah, I don't think these
None of
guys
these
are
guys
going to end up. They're not going to be the main villain.
You don't think so? You think it's going to
No.
be Martian and then like something else beyond Martian, or?
It might be Martian, but it won't be the Nihil.
Yeah. So,
I mean, he's just using them anyway.
well, let's get into Martian Rowe. So Martian Rowe is the main. He starts the book as positioned as sort of just like a one of the 4 leaders. So there's the 3 Tempest leaders, and then the Eye, who sort of coordinates between them, sort of sets up some of the jobs, and provides this key competitive advantage to them as marauders and smugglers across the galaxy in the paths. The paths are they're like dynamic hyperspace routes that if you have existing hyperspace routes, and you have to calculate a jump through hyperspace, and it's sort of this thing, and you can only there's limits to how you can travel through hyperspace. And if you're really good at navigating the hyperspace lanes, you can do things like making the Kessel Run in fewer parsecs than your competitors. What Martian Rowe can do is provide these sort of like shortcut paths through, like crossways through hyperspace, to get from, to get to places that no one else can. And so he's got that as an ace up his sleeve, and we'll talk about what that ace actually is in a second. But him in that position to have that ace, that little extra power, puts him in a unique position. Even though he's not a Tempest, he's not ahead of like a crew of 1,000, 1,000 of these guys. So that makes him interesting. Turns out and this is one of my problems with all these, there's no character arcs. Nobody has a character arc. Even Martian Rowe, who you think could have a character arc or could develop, doesn't have a character arc because you get to the very end and he said, "No, this was my plan all along." Like Palpatine in the Star Wars movies doesn't have a character arc. He's not supposed to. He doesn't. He's aiming for power. He tries to get power. He goes to get power. He doesn't have like a change of heart or a change of view or something that pushes him out of his comfort zone, an instigating event that puts him on a different path. That's what a sort of a journey of a character is. Nobody in this whole book has a character journey. Marchion Ro could have. I think that's the biggest miss of this book. But you get to the end and he says, "No, everything that happened, that's what I all meant to happen. This was all my plan all along. I started where I ended where I started. So, that's just it."
So with Marchion Ro, he hints at some backstory, but then he never really tells you
Also
the whole
that.
thing. But I wonder if maybe that was sort of what this book was supposed to deliver, is like just the beginnings of all these threads, and then at some point there'll be a payoff to the Marchion Ro backstory.
Maybe. And that would be interesting
Maybe,
if
yeah.
there
I don't know.
was. That would be great. It would have been great to have it in this book or some sort of setup and payoff. There was like no setups and payoffs. There was a little bit of tension that was immediately resolved by some magic happening in every single case.
No, but
Now
I guess
going
what I
down
mean is like,
the whole.
yeah, maybe the character arc for him is going to come out in over 3 books.
Okay, so maybe now that he's set himself up as and had been all along, and just his plan finished, and he's now just in more control than he was at the beginning, and that was
or maybe at the beginning of the next book, Loden Greatstorm kills him.
that would be great. that would be something interesting. Well, a lot of people die in this book, so let's talk about that. There was some other interesting characters. The first third of the book is filled with you starting to learn about a character and then that character getting killed immediately, like 3 pages later. There was that cool starship captain of the Legacy Run, which is the big cruiser that breaks up and is sort of the instigating event of the emergences and the shrapnel coming out of hyperspace. I kind of like the sound of her. She's like this old grizzled. She was like military captain. Now she's captaining the starship, but she's good to her people. And she's dead.
And she even had this relationship with her junior officer and all this stuff. And yeah.
Then there's then they moved to the communication station, and he's just a nerd at the comm station. He just does his day job, but there's this cute Twi'lek at the club, and she knows what I like, and I'm gonna go catch up with her later. And I really think I know I'm a Marilyn, and she's a Twi'lek, but I think they're dead.
Yeah. Right.
They're all dead. They're both dead. They're all dead. The Twi'lek's dead. Everybody's dead.
So the premise and what's killing everybody is
let's get
the ship with the captain that you just referred to, with the Legacy Run. Something happens in hyperspace that isn't supposed to be possible to happen, which is they basically almost have a collision with another ship.
Right.
And the reason that their ship breaks up is that in order to maneuver fast enough and strongly enough to avoid this collision with the other ship, she puts so much strain on the ship that it just breaks apart.
She cuts a hard left and then has a rollover.
So
breaks up. Or breaking up.
Then the result of that, and she goes through that thing that they often do in spaceships and submarines, where they close off different sections with space-worthy doors.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the ship breaks apart, there's all this debris. And then the debris apparently exits hyperspace, and then each piece of the ship is like a hurtling massive about to happen damage. So everywhere that a piece of one of those of debris was going to hit, if it was going to hit where there were people, that was the big danger. So the Jedi, that's the big danger that everyone has to kind of band together to fix.
Yes.
And so the first third of the book is all about that happening. And then at the very end of that third of the book, they go, But yeah, another piece of debris came out in another system that we didn't know about, and that killed a billion people. A
Right.
billion people. So it's sort of like, why did I have to sit through the whole all the stuff, the adventure of you saving all these people if I don't even get to feel like people were saved?
Right. And yeah. And this, the whole emergences is where I have a problem with some of the science. And again, this is fantasy, so fine, I'll suspend disbelief and can have fun with it. But I don't sort of buy the mechanics of now. To couple things. You find out at the end of the book, spoilers, Marcion Rowe apparently set up that near collision so that the freighter ship might end up, having to break, take a hard left and break up, and then all these emergencies might happen. How he knew that I mean, with the Paz, I guess he could have set it up. He could have had his ace in the hole, Mari Santeca, design the near miss. But that's just such a coincidence that he can make it so that you would have to swerve out of the way. Again, space is very, very big, and hyperspace doubly so because it's imaginary. But somehow you can have a head-on collision. So fine. Even if he set that up, now you've got these emergencies, and this is my next problem, is these emergencies are destroying planets. They're killing billions of people and they're destroying planets.
He did set it up. He did.
Okay.
It did
set
intend for
that
them
up.
to crash.
He set up the near miss or the head-on collision.
Yeah, right.
So he set up the head-on collision. I'll even buy that. He set up, it was so exact because Mari Santeca is magical. He could set up a head-on collision in hyperspace. The emergencies, though, now you've got pieces of what either would have been a collision or the ship breaking up because they steered out of the way, popping out of hyperspace, supposedly at near light speed. Nothing comes out of hyperspace at speed, and especially not at near light speed. We've never seen a ship or heard about, and it doesn't really make sense that you could just jump into hyperspace. I know it's called jump to light speed, but they're not actually, the velocity of the ship doesn't change. And if it does, that's energy being imparted. And why haven't they ever used that as a weapon? Just take anything, take a refrigerator, accelerate it to near light speed, and you can blow up a planet. I mean, it's not very difficult. Anyway, not only that is that happening, but as a bunch of these pieces of shrapnel, which are finite, it's just one ship that broke up, a bunch of chunks of the ship now that are big enough to do damage, that aren't just like little particles, emerge at near light speed into a solar system, and every single major piece somehow is aimed exactly at a population center or a communication satellite or moon or the planet or the sun. That's impossible. That would, again, space is very, very big. You would have to shoot a billion chunks of something from outside our solar system towards our solar system to have a chance of anything hitting the Earth. So I didn't buy that. In fact, at that part of the kickoff, so this is the very beginning of the book. This is the first, couple chapters. At that very kickoff, when they started to say, oh, and these things are popping out of hyperspace and they're heading right towards the planet and right towards the moon and right towards the communication. All communication satellites are going offline. Can you believe it? In my mind, I'm envisioning, wow, this must be some godlike super intelligence to have calculated the astrometrics and have these things pop out of hyperspace at the exact trajectories to meet up with these population centers. No, it's just all random. It just happened to happen that way. Whatever. And then how does that get resolved? How does the planet get saved from the big chunk that's hurtling towards the planet, Seema? Magic. A space wizard did it. So we have a few of those kinds of setups and payoffs where you have a bit of tension. Something bad is about to happen, like, a big chunk of something is going to hit the planet, and all the space wizards, concentrate really hard, and our hero of the day here, what's her name?
Avar Chris
concentrates really hard, and Yoda says, I'm listening, I'll help too. And they push it, and then they fix it. And then there's even a bigger chunk flying towards this other star, which happens to be a canister of this special gas. And just this special gas is now flying towards just this special unstable star, where if this magic gas hits this magic star, the whole star is going to explode and destroy the system. So then they have to think even harder and concentrate even harder to have magic solve that one too.
I think this is going to be so. Like, this is where Evar Chris's special talent comes in, which is her ability to link all the Jedi through the Force. And so she links all the Jedi that have come to that system to, because they need to move this Tabana gas out of the way of the sun. And then it's not enough. So she's able to link in Jedi start joining from all over the galaxy. And I think this might be like a recurring thing that happens throughout this series of fiction and set in the High Republic, where we learn a new Jedi and their new special thing. And we even have a character, Elzar Mann, whose special ability is he uses the Force in ways that nobody thought of before. So I think there's going to be a lot of that where we get new thinking about how to use the Force.
Yep. I still think it's
I
super
don't think
soft.
I don't think they're gonna back off of that. Is
No.
what I'm saying.
No, and I, that whole idea of through the Force anything is possible. I truly believe now anything is possible. So I mean, there's more of these things happen. We have to link 50,000 astrometric droids. The nerd is going to help save and calculate. I forgot what his name is, but he's just generic nerd character. He's going to link all these astromech droids. He's nearly incompetent though, and doesn't think about them overheating enough to figure out a solution to that. So he links all the astromech droids to calculate you have this big calculation network to calculate some of these emergencies of where they're going to happen, and starts that all up, and they start to overheat in like thousands at a time. And Azar Mann and his Padawan, I think it was him and his Padawan, they think really hard, and then they make it rain, and they save the day with magic.
When I was reading that part, I just wish they would have made it anything other than overheating, because I struggle with my computer overheating. That's too real for me. I wish they would have made it like something totally unexpected, like it was getting overrun by bugs that eat droids or something, and they had to
or the network started to become sentient, and the Jedi had to calm it and use the Force to have a mind.
Oh my god, that would be awesome.
But no, it just got really hot, and then they just made it rain. Because through the Force, anything is possible. So magic fixed it. So all of this stuff is just happening, and then there's one more subplot of, again, and these weird subplots. Marchion Ro sets up this deal, or he puts a little thing in motion that causes somebody to say, okay, I'll do this, and that causes them to do this, causes them to decide they're going to run this kidnap mission on this rich couple that live on a planet with their couple kids, and they go there to do this kidnap mission for ransom. And that was all a setup because they knew there was a Jedi outpost there, that there happened to be some Jedi there who, for some reason, were hanging around this outpost and not helping with all these emergencies across the galaxy. And that results in a cool little scene, and sort of stuff happens in a cool way. The four, these four Jedi, or three Jedi and a Padawan, the little Bell, what's his name? Bell Zippy, or whatever it is, that Padawan's
Zedifar.
name, which
Bell
I wasn't very
Zedifar.
interested in. They each have to do a part to try to save this family, and they're fighting against a pack of Nihil, and sort of like a Mad Max Save the Women scene, like the plot of Mad Max. They're doing that. At the end of all of that, Loden Greatstorm Best name. So they like save the girl because Bell jumps out of a spaceship and catches her in the air and does the thing he could never do in practice. In the clutch moment, he thinks really hard and saves her with magic. Then the other Jedi saves the mom, and another Jedi saves the boy. Then a loading Greystorm goes to save the dude, and one of the fun characters, what's her name? Sandra D.
Lorna D.
Lorna D. Lorna D, one of the Tempest leaders of the Nihil, swoops in and captures Loden Greatstorm and the dad and takes them back to Marcion Row. And Marcion Row then reveals that was his plan all along. It was just to, on this, he just needed to capture a Jedi, and he figured that would work. And by golly, it did. So he captures Loden Greatstorm. And this is sort of like the resolution in the setup for what's going to come next, is he captures Loden Greatstorm and the dad. He shows how bad of a bad he is by killing the dad with Loden Greatstorm's lightsaber to make Loden Greatstorm extra sad, and then puts Loden Greatstorm in a special prison surrounded by other people who are being tortured so that Loden Greatstorm is blocked from the Force. Which was his plan all along. So he destroyed part of his own fleet. There was another subplot about that by sending them off into a dirty battle. He set up this kidnapping. He set up the emergencies. Also, he could get better control and over the Nihil and capture a Jedi. And he did it all. Everything sort of worked out perfectly, exactly as he planned. And it was his plan all along. And that's how he planned it.
But how did he plan it?
We don't know. And he hates the Jedi, but we don't really know why. Maybe we'll find out that at some point, and maybe it'll be interesting.
Something happened in his...
They didn't kill his dad because he killed the guy who killed his dad as part of the plot of this book. So
He thinks.
Yeah, he thinks that was the guy who killed his dad. He knew he was like, one of you's killed my dad. I think it was you. So, I'm not saving you with Paz this time. And then he got killed by the people off the planet that got nuked. And that planet, I believe, is an important planet. What was the name of that planet? Iriadu?
Yeah, Iriadu.
Which I think is Grand Moff Tarkin's home planet. So we're not lore experts, but I think that's Grand Moff Tarkin's home planet. Look that up. So Iriadu, so one of the Tempest leaders goes to extort Iriadu, the planet. There's we know there's an emergence coming. There's a couple of them that are coming, and they're going to slam into your planets. And here comes one, and I'll shoot it out of the air for you. I'm going to be cool about it, but now you got to pay me $1 million. And then the final emergence pops out at slightly wrong time because Marcion set it up that way, slams into Iriadu, kills 1 billion people, and now the Iriaduans, they just happen to be badass assassin people too.
By the way, this is the second time that 1 billion people have been killed by debris. But Go ahead.
So now no way they're letting this lie, and they come in later and help destroy this part of the Nihil fleet, which makes the Republic think the Nihil are now destroyed. That was part of Marcion's plan also. So now Marcion's in better control, and he's got a Jedi, and it sets it up because now Marcion has discovered what the Jedi fear, and that's the big thing at the end. That's the setup for the future. What could make a Jedi afraid? What's your guess, Seema? What do you think could make the Jedi afraid?
Well, it's definitely not fear itself.
It is fear itself. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Well, what else? Maybe it's not, but I think it is. What else? What are the Jedi going to be afraid of? The Jedi weren't afraid of Emperor Palpatine, the Sith control, master of controlling all of the. What was Obi-Wan ever afraid of? Not a thing. So it's got to be something like, as you said, maybe it's like them getting severed from the Force. Maybe it's the comic book brings in
No, I
another
didn't.
bad guy, another
Yeah,
super bad guy. So maybe
yeah.
it's them.
I didn't mean that they'd be afraid of getting said. I just meant that they're going to have to limit what the Jedi can do at some point, or it'll be hard to make plots going forward.
Right. You likened it to the Superman syndrome, which was Superman he's invincible and the super fast and super powerful, and that makes it difficult to create stories about him. So the original comics invented kryptonite so that you could have some stories and something could happen. So yes, we need to invent the kryptonite of the Jedi, which maybe is this fear force severing kind of thing.
I mean, I think we'll probably learn that individual Jedi have different limitations. Like I already said, the Jedi that couldn't react fast enough and died, and then the Jedis who thought too hard and died.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So they do have some limits. This thing in the upper left here, not exactly sure what that is. I think that's out of the comic book, and that is also a baddie of some kind, or a race of baddie, or a race of baddies is using that thing as. So I don't know what that is. So maybe there's more bad things around, which I would expect. It's a galaxy.
Right.
It's an entire
Like-
galaxy, the big place.
Right. The Nihil are just local.
It's just a few thousand, yeah. And they don't have like force powers or anything. They're just like a few thousand dudes with
every book doesn't have to be epic.
No, but if you're fighting against Jedi who can like move spaceships in space with their minds, you better have an epic bad guy of some kind. Or yeah, maybe you can cut them all off from the force all at once.
They never wanted to fight the Jedi. That's why they were hiding.
And now they're back in hiding. So
and one of their big fears was if the Jedi and the Republic found out about them. Right now they feel like they're safe because they don't even know they exist, or in the beginning. But now the Jedi know they exist. Now they're threatened.
Yeah.
I'm fine with them not being, equal to the Jedi. It's just one story.
Right. It's just one story. And to sum it up, stuff happens, wizards do magic, and nobody grows or changes.
Yeah.
That's kind of my
hope. My hope is that it's sort of like taking the deck of cards and fanning it out, so you don't really see any of the cards, but you just see that there's a deck of cards, and then maybe the subsequent books will like take one or two of those cards out, and then they'll tell a story.
Yeah. So definitely, everybody's gonna need to watch it, or to read it, or just get into this content, because it's Star Wars. Every Star Wars fan is gonna need to. There's other sort of like cool side things that are just cool, cool little reveals. They use their lightsabers as like the key to unlock their little fighter jets. They're like, here's a lightsaber with a cross guard. We're here. Oh, look at this. They've got the white. You can get the white blades if you like think real hard and purify a dark crystal. But look, she's got like 2 blades in parallel. So there's a lot of those sort of cool Star Warsy things sort of being added on, and a little bit of what's this Darksaber over here? I didn't even notice that. I don't know what this art is. But I know who. I think she was mentioned in Light of the Jedi. That it looks like Loden Greatstorm. I don't know who this veiled ninja Jedi with the Darksaber is. That's kind of cool.
No. Yeah, we don't know who that is. Not from just reading that one book for sure.
And here's Aang from
Doctor Strange.
No, from Legend of Korra and the Fire Nation, and what you guys know what I'm thinking of. That's
when I was reading the first part of this book, I felt like if I were watching it as a movie, and they started off with the Legacy run having this collision, and then that part was over, that would have worked perfectly well in a movie. What made it hard for me in a book was they gave names to all the people inside the ship, and then they had their motivations for why they were even going to the bridge in the first place, and she scolded this little boy for trying to download age inappropriate media, and then they all get blown up. It's sort of like, and then the scene where they were chasing the Nihil that were trying to kidnap the family.
Hmm.
I was kind of picturing that too, like almost like a scene from The Mandalorian where they're just going across the countryside in their various unmatching vehicles. And I think they're all ideas that are just there's something to them. And if you like just sort of living in the Star Wars world, it's worth reading. But don't look for a lot of character development. We'll hoping
Right.
for that to come in subsequent books.
And I think it was fine as a book to set up this High Republic and sort of, paint a lot of the backstory and paint a lot of the set pieces. I think if it was a movie, it would have been a complete failure. And
No, I didn't. I'm not saying
yeah,
if it was a movie. I'm just saying those
no, but
scenes.
I get what you're saying. Because then you
If
don't,
I was, if I was writing this book, I would start some point after the the legacy run exploding, like maybe with, maybe pick one of the Jedi that are trying to respond, and then you find out in bits what they're responding to. Meanwhile, you're getting to know this Jedi, and that way you can start with action and you can start building a character, and you can build the plot, but just the way it was laid out is it just stops. It doesn't build the action; it stops the action
yeah. I
at,
think if
at multiple times throughout the book.
I think if I was doing this, I would have picked picked one picked one or a couple people to introduce and to tell their story. Then I would have done, another book in the same universe to introduce a couple more,
Hmm.
reveal a little bit more and tell another person's story with an arc and a
Yeah.
journey. And so the Marvel universe works because it started with Iron Man, and then you told the story about Iron Man, and we got introduced to Iron Man, and then we got Captain America, and then we learned who Nick Fury was, and oh well, here's Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow is now plugged in, and then and then there's Thor. Then you plug more pieces in, you expand the world. So by the time you do Infinity War, everyone has been introduced, and you've had these character arcs, and these characters have changed and grown. They still
Hmm.
continue to change and grow. Thor had over the course of those two movies had, was bent on another path and then pulled back in, and he becomes what he was always meant to be. There's these journeys that then weave into the ensemble thing. This seemed like you spit out a big ensemble action scene and never set up who any of these people we're supposed to care about. Avar Chris, because she's supposed to be this big cool best of the best. I don't got
So rocky start, but it still might go that way, right? Like,
sure.
I mean, to have watched 7 or
Yeah, yeah,
8
yeah,
or
yeah,
10 or 11 Marvel movies is a pretty big investment. I haven't done that.
yeah,
I mean, I've watched several Marvel movies.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, when I watched Endgame, what's that? What's the last one called?
yeah. Endgame.
And
And
Infinity Wars, I didn't know all the characters.
right. and
Um,
and you don't have to know them all, but it's
yeah.
probably a little bit disconcerting. Who's the guy waving his hands around and making magic circles in the air? What's up with that? Oh, I guess maybe there's some story there. But if they just said, and then a Jedi came in and made magic circles in the air and people jumped out of them,
But if they would have
I
made a book
that's kind of what
where
this
the
book did.
where Avar Chris was her story,
Hmm.
like they made the Iron Man movie, the Iron Man story, that would have been a strong way to start.
I think it would have, and she could have made her lightsaber with a box of scrap in the desert.
Or on Python on a mountain.
I think that would have been perfect. All right, so I think we've gone a good amount here. It's not exhaustive, of course. every Star Wars fan should certainly get into it. I think there's going to be a lot across all of this High Jedi stuff, and you can insert yourself probably in any of the places. You could just read the comic books and then expand into the other things, or just read the young adult novels and then expand in the other directions. What's your summary take, Seema? I'll do my summary take and we'll wrap it up.
I mean, it's Star Wars. If you like hanging out in the Star Wars galaxy, it's worth reading. Oh, I do have to say, maybe you want to read it rather than listen to it.
Good final point.
And
why is that?
2 reasons.
Yeah. Pew pew.
The narrator, who was very talented, was also very sort of over the top in some situations, which kind of took me out of the story. The other thing is there's sound effects all the way through it. Like every second of it, there's sound effects. So even if they didn't have anything specific that they were trying to outline with the sound effect, like if they would just make a hum, like you're on a starship and it's humming.
Right.
And that was giving me a headache.
Use your words. We don't have a music bed behind our podcast, although we often have a little bit of background sound from planets, I guess.
But so if those things would bother you, then I would say read it, like get it on Kindle or whatever.
Yep. And my summary is similar. It's Star Wars. You should get into it. I think it was fine. Even with these flaws and the holes I'm poking in it, I still think it was fine. It certainly was. I've read other. It's not by any means my least favorite book of the year. It was fine. And I will probably pick up some of the other ones. And I kind of want to I don't really get into comic books, but now I kind of want to with this. And Charles, the author of this book, is actually a comic book writer, where it got his start. He's done other things since then. I would like to see some of his talent realized in that way as well. So, thumbs up, mostly. It's fine. We're all fine here. How are you? And I think with that, we can wrap it up and I don't think we're going to decide tonight, but think about maybe doing this again. If you liked us talking about the book, the setup, getting to read it, and then the payoff of sort of the breakdown and the review, let us know. I've got 2 books sitting on my shelf over here. One is called Ahsoka. Another is called Thrawn. I'm eyeballing those ones. And then there's a whole other galaxy of Star Wars books, including Legends, that we could get into. Write in in the comments somewhere, or catch us in Discord if you think we should do another book. And maybe next week we'll announce a next one. But with that, we can take our EPC 372 droid and kick it out in airlock to broadcast this podcast out for the week. If you want updates on where and when we'll be podcasting next, it's usually Thursday nights, but it usually goes out on Twitter at Max the Gray. You can also, as we keep saying, join us on Discord, because joining Discord is the best thing ever. AIE-guild.org, big link in the upper right, says join the guild Discord. We have a SWTOR channel where all of the things that we've got going on in our guild happen. Our Tuesday night open guild nights, our many ops teams that are running, our Friday night open events, our mega that's coming up next week. You can find all that in the Discord. And then we have a Star Wars SWTOR Escape podcast channel as well, where we announce that the podcast is going live, and we announce when I finally edit it up and publish it out on Fridays. And with that, I think we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone.